Welcome everyone to our community conversation on good news, bad news, HOA board communication strategies. My name is Dave Zacconi. I'm the CEO of ECHO, the Executive Council of Homeowners, or otherwise known as the Educational Council of Homeowners. Thank you for participating in today's community conversation. ECHO is a 51-year-old statewide nonprofit association established to support HOA board members and engaged homeowners. Our mission is to foster a better quality of life in community associations through education, advocacy, and connections. For today's event, we have a few housekeeping items. These are now presented on the screen. This slide deck was sent to all registered attendees prior to this event, and you should have the slides available. Please take a moment to review our housekeeping items. Today, we have a large audience, I think over 300 people, HOA board members primarily. We will do our best to answer all of your questions, but may run out of time. Our prerogative, at the prerogative of the presenters, they may answer questions during the presentation or only during the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. We will answer as many questions as possible in the time allotted. In addition to the live Q&A session, I will be answering questions via text in the Q&A feature during the presentation. To prioritize your questions, please use the upvote, which is a thumbs up button in the Q&A feature. Those questions with the most upvotes will be answered first. It's easy and simple. Simply hit the button thumbs up, and we'll give you a little time to do that at the end of the program of the presentation. Those questions with the most thumbs up, of course, will be answered first. Also, please keep your questions general in nature and short. We may pass over some questions if they're too long or if they're too specific to your organization. Specific questions, as I mentioned, about your community are best left to your attorney or an appropriate expert familiar with your situation. Please use the chat feature to report technical issues and communicate directly with other participants in the webinar. We do not monitor the chat room and chat conversations for questions. So again, please use the chat feature for technical issues and to communicate, direct message other members of the that are visiting today, and use the Q&A feature for your questions. Now, let me direct your attention to your monitor, where you will find our disclaimer. None of what is said today during this seminar shall be construed as specific legal advice or expert advice from the speaker, sponsors, or ECHO. If you wish specific advice, we encourage you to contact your attorney or another suitable expert. The information we provide during the webinar is educational in nature and should not be relied upon for specific decision-making purposes. Thank you. This webinar and all our events are made possible by the generous support of ECHO HOA professional service providers. Please join me in thanking today's program sponsors, CID Consortium, LLC.
HOA board members are volunteers from a variety of backgrounds who face complex legal, financial, social, and maintenance challenges. CID Consortium, LLC is proud to support educational opportunities for volunteer board members and HOA members. At CID Consortium, our purpose is to enhance your community living experience.
And today's two gift card sponsors, CM Squared and Divergent Consulting Group. Please stick around until the end of the webinar to win one of these two $50 Amazon gift cards. Please, and you must be present to win, I'll add that. Please support all ECHO professional members and especially our sponsors. They make our educational programming possible at little or no cost to you. And now on with the presentation. Netta Nehuri, I'll get it right, Nehurai, is CEO and founder of HOA Organizers. At the age of 25, Netta formed her company, and just 16 years after its formation, it serves over 160 communities throughout California and employs over 60 team members. Netta has dedicated her career to the HOA industry, having served on the board as well as president of and as a committee chair for various industry-specific trade organizations, and has received her PCAM designation. She has coordinated and hosted and spoken at numerous educational sessions for her clients, and also has been an active speaker for various industry events and strategic planning sessions nationwide. Netta has a passion for empowerment and education, mentoring future leaders in the industry. With that in mind, she started the free board educational event, the ABCs of HOA, now in its 11th year running. A Los Angeles native, Netta is a firm believer in the power of positive mindset, has a passion for health and wellness, and is, most importantly, a mother of 2 incredible twins. Matt Metters serves as Chief Operating Officer for HOA Organizers and heads the Northern California division. Matt has vast experience in community management and has received a PCAM designation. In his years in the industry, having honed his management skills, helping clients overcome financial, interpersonal, and physical challenges. He has been able to pass that expertise onto his team and to clients. He has written articles for various organizations, including ECHO, served on boards and committees of various trade organizations, and has also provided service as an expert trial witness on best community management practices. A native and current resident of Walnut Creek and a graduate of USC's Thornton School of Music, Matt has a passion for opera, good food, and laughter. So I'll turn it over to Netta now. Thank you so much.
Dave, thank you so much for that introduction and for all of you for being here. This is a topic that we are very passionate about, and I think that everybody who's here shares our passion in this topic. We can jump right into the first slide. So I'll start by saying happy belated Valentine's Day. What is a day like Valentine's Day really? It's a day where we get to acknowledge loved ones. Sometimes we need that nudge, that reminder to communicate appreciation for people. We have anniversaries, holidays, things like that. And these really, again, are ticklers, little reminders for us to take a step back from our day-to-day lives and really communicate and spend time with the people that mean something to us. But if anybody has a relationship in life, which I know we all do, a partner, a spouse, a close friend, parents, siblings, you know that in the absence of communication, things can really break down. So in most cases, we hear the phrase less is more, but I think in communication in general, we're going to talk about more is more. And Matt's going to share a little bit about our outline for today. But we're going to really dive into talking about communication in the setting of being a board member and communicating with your membership. So go ahead, Matt.
Yes, so thank you, Netta. Today, we are going to be talking about the importance of effective communication in maintaining and strengthening this relationship that you have with your members. So we're going to talk about what should be communicated and how best to communicate it. We are then going to provide you with some real-world tools around real-world topics that we found a lot of communities are dealing with today. So we are very excited to share that with you.
So we're going to start by jumping into a quick poll. We wanted to kind of gauge where everybody is. There's first of all, okay, yeah, we did want to just generally know on number one, what kind of background, where everybody is. Are you professionally managed? Do you have an on-site general manager that you work more closely with, or are you self-managed? And then the items 2 through the end of the poll, we just wanted to kind of feel you out and really understand what you would think you would do in each of these scenarios before we dive into specific topics. So we'll take a minute to let you answer these questions and see what we get. Now, there is obviously the best answer. And I think what you'll start to learn in these patterns is that when it comes to communication, there is no right, every answer could be a right answer, especially when it comes to the more is more, as we talked about. Great. Okay, how are we doing on participation? Are we almost?
We have about 70% participation, and we're just now hitting a minute and a half on the poll.
Okay, so we'll wait maybe 20 more seconds and then we'll close the poll. That works.
Sounds good.
Great. All right.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll now, and then I'll put it on the screen for everyone to take a look at.
Wonderful. Thank you.
There you are.
Okay. So on the first question, we talked about, or the question was, should the agenda be posted? Should it be emailed? Should it be snail mailed? All of the above, none of the above. And this is a prime example of, we know what the legal requirements are, which are that the agendas for board meetings should be posted, but many associations want to go that extra step and want to email it, want to snail mail it, especially if it's an important meeting, and you want to encourage participation, all of the above. And then we had some people who said none of the above. So at the very least, we know it should be posted, but communicating with homeowners and sharing the agenda and reaching them in a more widely communication, well, the communication tools are more widely used. You're going to reach people. If it's just posted in a common area, for example, many homeowners may not see it. So the benefit of emailing or even mailing, nobody picked that. That seems to be very archaic nowadays, but the snail mailing. Matt, you want to read the...
Yeah. So question 3, elevator notice. So an elevator being out of service. So should be posted. So the expectation around this, like if you guys have an on-site community manager, this is easy peasy. If not, it's really important that the board is proactive in setting out who is going to be responsible for posting this in the event that an elevator does go down. So is that the management company? Are they going to run on site and do it? Is there a particular board member, such as the secretary, who's going to be responsible for it? Do you have a vendor partner that's going to be working on that? And yes, for definitely correct, or Dottie, the every complex does not have a location to post notices. So timely things like this that can affect your entire membership, yes, should probably be emailed for the quickest response and quickest distribution. And yeah, all of the above. I mean, I likely would not use snail mail for an elevator being out of service unless it was a planned outage that was going to last a significant amount of time. Yeah.
And then notice of special assessment. So again, many of you know that when the special assessment has been approved, we have a legal requirement to mail the date in which the special assessment will go into effect, with at least 30 days notice. And so 17% of you did say it should be snail mailed, although 75% of you said all of the above. And so again, at the very least, the emailing to make sure that homeowners actually see it, mailing, and certainly posting, and then making sure you hit all of those different avenues, communication avenues, just ensures that you're going to reach as many homeowners as you possibly can. And then go ahead, Matt.
The notice of planned water outage. So again, this is something that can come in two different forms, right? Either something that has popped up or something that has been planned for. Something, if it has popped up, then again, we want to be sure we have airtight policies for ensuring that people are notified of this expediently. So who's going to be emailing, who's going to be perhaps texting, and if things do need to be posted on site for members who are of a certain age who may not have access to technology, who is going to be responsible for that? Again, unless this was something where the planned water outage was weeks in advance, likely not going to use snail mail for this specifically, but again, if it's something where water is going to be out for a period of 2 weeks and 2 months in advance, yes, why not? Like, use every tool in your tool belt.
Yeah, and as we close out this whole topic, I think this highlights what Matt and I are trying to convey to everybody here today, which is that we just want to take a step back, and especially in the homeowners association world, when there's so much happening, we want to take a step out of the reactive management that inevitably falls on our plates. And we want to take a step back and look at things in a proactive way. We just really want to start getting those gears turning and really thinking about things in a strategic way. How can we best create a sense of community? How can we, engage our homeowners and our members? Okay.
All right. Next slide, please. Great. So let's talk about what should be communicated. And some of these are going to seem like no-brainers. Some of these are going to be things that perhaps you didn't think of. But let's talk about it. So upcoming events, large projects that the community is undertaking, regular assessment increases, special assessments, any emergencies that come up at the community, regular community news, meeting agendas, meeting minutes, and recaps of those meetings, and any violations or architectural notices. We don't often think of every piece of information that we send out as being association correspondence. But it's really important that we treat every article of written correspondence that goes out to the members as official correspondence and give it the deference that it deserves. So let's move on to various communication methods, which we just talked about, but let's talk about the benefits and drawbacks of those various methods that I see some of you in the comments have already been chatting about. So we can move to the next slide. All right, so snail mail. So as we saw from the poll, there are some mixed views on snail mail, right? It used to be the gold standard of official delivery of community information to the members in California. In the past few years, California's civil code has changed a good deal to allow a lot more latitude for board members to be able to distribute things electronically, specifically documents that can be delivered under civil code through general delivery. So these are things like meeting notices. If you have noticed the members in your annual policy and budget disclosure package that the location of general notices being posted is going to be on a website, you can do that. And that serves to put you in compliance with the law, right? Now, we talked about that's not always necessarily what's going to be best for your community. You can still include a physical posting location if you prefer that. Just know that doing one or the other, you have to stay in that lane for the duration of your year until you provide the members with an additional notice saying, hey, we're moving to this other way of giving you notice. Some drawbacks, right, to snail mail. One, some people just don't look at mail to begin with. I'm a person who, unless it's a bill and I know it's a bill, I may give it a little while or I may just toss it. I don't know. It's It sounds very
Guilty.
irresponsible, but I'm very on top of my stuff, I can guarantee.
Guilty
So,
of the same. I am guilty.
yeah, I mean, it's just, I think we're humans. The other issue that we've run across throughout COVID, and it seems to have just never ended, is the timely delivery issue of snail mail. It's just not moving as quickly as it once did. So let's talk about email and text message communication. I'll kind of group these together as they're fantastic in emergencies, right? They're really good for getting mass information out to mass numbers of people quickly. For instance, we've had communities that were very close or have been impacted by wildfires. We've been able to give people notice via text message that, hey, you've been ordered by the county to evacuate. Recent earthquakes, we just had some earthquakes in Southern California that we were able to immediately dispatch communication to our memberships and say, hey, as you're aware, earthquakes, and be mindful of potential gas shutoffs or odors that you might notice. Be aware of any elevator issues that you notice, and please let us know and call 911 if you smell gas, obviously. The only difficulty with email and text messages is that phone numbers and emails can change rapidly. So under civil code, associations must solicit, members are required to provide their contact information annually. So it's really important to make sure that both of those parties are doing what they need to do to make sure the information is getting out as efficiently as possible. Newsletters, they're a fantastic way to regularly distribute information to the membership. It gives the members a little nice cadence of, okay, I know once a quarter a newsletter's coming, and they have that to look forward to, so they're not feeling like they're in a glut of information. It also brings the membership in and engages them. It also is a great option for boards to be able to remind members of rules, right, that are timely to perhaps the time of year. Don't forget to clean out your area drains before the heavy rains hit. You know, remember that Christmas trees need to be dragged away by such and such date. Management platforms. So these are softwares that can help you accomplish all of this, right? Help you keep track of all of it and distribute the information. If you have a professional management company, the vast majority of them will have these tools that you can use that are already built in. If you're self-managed, there are very cost-effective options that self-managed communities can use for this very same purpose. I'm not going to give any brand names right this second, but if you have any questions, you can reach out to us after. And social media. So this is rough. So a lot of people love the idea of having a community Facebook group, a WhatsApp group, a Nextdoor thing. The benefit of social media, right, is that you don't have to teach Gertrude down the street how to use Facebook. She knows how to use Facebook. The difficulty is the liability that can come along with this, right? So you as board members should not be posting or commenting on social media. Any communication that you have put out as a board member could be construed as communication from the corporation, communication from your board. There's a heavy desire, and understandably so, to control the narrative, as Netta was discussing earlier, and there's an understandable desire to just jump in and start defending the work that the board has done. It is really best to do that in more formal ways so that there's no miscommunication. So, you know, I would not recommend board members interact on social media. All right, so on the next slide, we have an example, right, of a newsletter that gets sent out to communities. You'll see some things in here about understanding CC&Rs, ways to pay your assessments, how to get things done. This is a really great tool.
Yeah. There's a lot of comments that are coming through about the social media and questions about that. And I would really encourage you board members to talk to your legal counsel. We've talked to many who mostly share the same opinion and have advised us of the same. There is actual case law, and this is kind of a little off topic, about a board member who saw their neighbor and looked at their neighbor painting their home, and it was an unapproved color. And the neighbor said, "What do you think?" And the board member said, "I think it looks nice." And so this got litigated, and ultimately that comment was taken as though that individual board member provided approval to that homeowner. So whether you're making representations or not, there can be this perception that as a board member, you are speaking on behalf of the corporation, as Matt indicated. So, you have to kind of err on the side of caution when it comes to things like that, and make sure that representations that are made by board members are made collectively. And so we wanted to talk about newsletters because this is such an underrated tool. And, if you can use the chat feature, I'm just curious to know how many of you have a newsletter that you put out with some regularity, whether it be quarterly, annually, monthly. Just say me or us or something in the chat box just to get an okay, monthly, we have a lot. No newsletter. Okay. Trying monthly, it's too slow. Okay. Good. So I see a good portion that say yes, and also probably what appears maybe like 20% that say no, 30% that say no. Okay. So when you're using tools like snail mail, we talked about the fact that it's a letter. Matt and I just shared that we don't necessarily open mail that doesn't appear to be official in capacity. Perhaps some of you are like us, maybe you're better than us, but when it comes to mail, just the snail mail, we tend to it's just text. There's nothing exciting about it. And when we think about the newsletters, the beauty of the newsletter is that it can be printed. It can be mailed. It can be provided on a bulletin board. It could be posted on a bulletin board. It could also be emailed in a digital format to homeowners. And as we're moving towards this digital age, people are becoming more and more visual. If you just kind of think about yourselves, if you go onto a website, you find that a website is really appealing if there's a short video, if there's, compelling graphics. And so I really wanted to share that when you put your newsletter together, there are some tools that you can use, or that I recognize that getting somebody to do the newsletter in and of itself can be a bit daunting, but there are some tools that are out there. For example, the presentation that we put together, Matt and I used Canva, and it's a very user-friendly system. Neither one of us have any background in any graphic design or anything, but it makes it very easy to be able to find templates, plug in templates. For example, on Canva, you can say, give me an example, or give me some examples of, if your community colors are, let's say, green and white. I want some, examples of green and white newsletters, and you can build off of the templates that exist and sort of plug in your own texts and graphics. And then that could be the template that is then used to plug in the articles that are put together. There's other things out there like Fiverr. I know we've used it for a nominal fee. I think we've done things for $50 or even $100. You have somebody who will put this together for you, so you can send articles and tell them what you want to put in, and what you want the general feel of the newsletter to look like, and they can handle it for you. So again, I know that doing it ourselves, or having your management company do it, or finding a volunteer to do it, can be a daunting task. So there's ways to work around it, but this is the tool that you can use where you can kind of pat yourselves on the back. You can talk about what's coming up. You can talk about your accomplishments. It is a PR tool, and it's a way to engage people. We've seen associations who will add fun little articles about we're going to do, let's say, a recipe exchange. And so we'll take your recipes and we'll feature a recipe. And another way to build community while also getting information out that the board wants the homeowners to be aware of. Okay, we can move on to. Okay.
All right, so let's talk about some day-to-day communication. Obviously, these are the things that you're going to be communicating about every single day, you or your management company. So imminent issues, mechanical failures, right? Things that are bringing down elevators, bringing down water. The important thing to realize about these kind of, we'll call them reactive correspondences, is that they are not one and dones. They just can't be by their very nature, right? So when we become aware of the issue, it's super important that we're communicating it as quickly and efficiently as possible. While the issue is ongoing, right? If it's not rectified within an hour or two, or I will say whenever the most disadvantaged member of your community might remember that this is a problem, then you want to make sure that you're keeping up on that. I'll give you an example. We had a community where their water storage tank burst. So not only were the units affected, but there was a whole building that was without water, without hot water for the foreseeable future. So we had to send out email correspondences to the members once every, I'd say, 2 to 3 hours when we were open. So this was a multi-day project. We had to let them know when we expected it to be completed. We had to let them know when they could expect hot water again. And then we also armed our after hours team with the knowledge that, you know, us during business hours had around what was going on. So if people called in, they had that knowledge. It was a 24/7 triage, right, until this was rectified. I'm not saying that board members have to necessarily go to those lengths if you guys don't have a management company behind you, but just be knowledgeable that, you know, as I'm sure you understand, if people are without water, without an elevator, then it can be an issue. Another thing you want to talk about day to day is upcoming ongoing projects and ongoing maintenance. This is something that often gets forgotten, right? So we schedule roof maintenance to be performed. We're like, great, we'll you know, have knowledge that everything's going to be cleaned. But what we maybe forgot about is that a lot of people are working from home, right? They may have skylights, they may have windows that are kind of up on the roof. We want to let people know that if there are going to be any disturbances to their day, whether it's loud noises, or perhaps people peering in, or perhaps falling tree branches in the parking area that could harm themselves or their cars, we really have to be diligent in communicating that. If there's a wildfire and the pool cleaning schedule has been changed, we have to communicate that. Otherwise, you're going to get a million questions about why isn't the pool cleaned yet? Well, because there's stuff burning still. And then policy changes. So why? And we're going to talk about this a little bit later. We want to lean heavily on the why behind the decisions that have been made and that are being proposed. You know, a maintenance matrix, which you may or may not have used, is a fantastic tool. The difficulty is the maintenance matrix is not adding any additional information from your CC&Rs. It's purely clarifying what is already there. But it can be a real challenge communicating that to the members, because they can become confused because they thought it was one way and it's actually some other way, but they couldn't understand that because it was written in legalese. So you know, we can talk about that in greater detail when we go into this governing document discussion. But in the short term, a maintenance matrix is simply a T-chart, major physical components that your attorney can put together for a nominal fee, outlines is the association responsible, is the owner responsible. Okay, so we can move right along.
So town hall meetings are another really great way to engage your membership. But before we dive into the purpose of the town hall meetings and how to use them, let's talk about the legality. So a town hall meeting, it's not an open session board meeting, it's not an executive session meeting, and it's not a membership meeting. So the question is, should it be noticed like one of those meetings? And the answer is yes. If you have a quorum of the board present, you have to give the 4 days notice. You have to post the agenda. but you're not going to be making decisions. If you want to make decisions at the town hall meeting, then you're going to have to post that this is taking place, but you're also going to have to post a separate open or executive session meeting. So make sure that you follow the protocol when it comes to posting meeting notices. But again, this goes back to the original polls. If we're hosting a town hall meeting, do we just simply post an agenda and call it a day? No, we're going to want to reach as many homeowners as we possibly can and inform them of this with as much notice as we possibly can. Because the purpose of a town hall meeting is just that. You want the town to come to the hall so that they can hear what information the board needs them to hear. And also, when we talk about active listening, we want to make sure that the board hears your homeowners. So the town hall meeting, this is a really good tool when it comes to those big ticket items. You want to be able to PR. It's a PR strategy, really sharing information with your membership in terms of why you are where you are, why the board is thinking about undertaking certain financial decisions or certain projects, and then getting feedback from your membership. And when you give the membership the opportunity to speak, it's really important to sit back and listen. You know, we are, as board members, we are elected to represent the membership. And yes, we are fiduciaries and we make decisions. And some aspects of the decisions that we make are based on legalities, but it is important to hear members. And if you have to make a decision because of legal requirements, we can certainly empathize with our homeowners and then explain, you know, I understand that's what you would prefer, but because of our legal requirements, this is what we have to do. So we'll dive into some scenarios of when to use town halls in the next slide, which basically include topics like regular assessments, special assessments, and major projects. So before the board actually implements any dues increases or any special assessments or major projects, we're looking at, again, increasing owners' responsibilities financially to the membership. If you just get a notice in the mail with your budget disclosure package, your year-end package, and homeowners learn that there's going to be a 20% dues increase, and there's been no communication about it beforehand, more often than not, you're going to have a large number of homeowners who are very unhappy with that decision. The reason behind the newsletters and the things that Matt and I talked about before, the purpose behind that is you can start to build that narrative. You can start to explain to homeowners that you're researching various projects, that your reserve study has called for the completion of certain projects, or simply just start to tell people in your newsletters in subtle terms, you know, insurance has gone up and we've noticed that vendor pricing has increased pretty substantially, and the board continues to look at ways to cut costs and ways to really keep our financials at bay. But, you know, we are looking at all options. So just planting those seeds throughout the year before that notice comes out is really important, and that's part of the PR process. But again, before a ballot goes out asking homeowners to vote on a special assessment, you're going to want to pull people together and use these various communication tools to explain the projects, the necessity behind the projects, and then hear your homeowners and hear, you know, perhaps there's a different way they'd like to approach a special assessment, or let's say, again, a bank loan. If there's any upcoming litigation, construction defect, or governing document revisions, these are all examples of when to use the town hall meetings. And I'm going to specifically talk about governing documents on the next slide. And I'll just use this as an example of how we can use a town hall meeting to really PR this. So if we could go to the next slide. Thank you. Perfect. So when it comes to governing document revisions, we know that this is a very long process. And I usually tell my boards that this could take anywhere from 6 to 12 months to accomplish, because we know the first step is that you engage legal counsel and they're going to draft the revised governing documents. And before they do that, they're going to send the board a questionnaire, and they're going to ask the board preferences on specific items. So, what do you want to do with, rental controls to the extent that we have control over it now? What do you want to do with noise transmission and hard surface flooring for condominium complexes? And, again, very specific things that they're going to ask the board on your preference. And then you're going to fill out that questionnaire, return it, and then your legal counsel is going to present the first draft of those revised governing documents. So usually what we would recommend is you take those governing documents, you distribute them to the membership. Now, you're not legally obligated to, when it comes to just reviewing initially, you're not legally obligated to distribute the governing documents by mail, but it's a good opportunity and recommended to do that at the first go around. And then invite homeowners to come to the town hall meeting. It's a great idea to have the attorney, and frankly, at any town hall meeting, have your experts or your vendors present. The more information from the experts and the more questions that the experts can also answer directly with the homeowners, the more they will feel comfortable with the information and feel like they're part of the process. So when homeowners come to these town hall meetings, you want to encourage them to come to those meetings with any areas that they find to be particularly challenging. Sometimes homeowners won't even vote for governing document revisions simply because they don't feel like reading the whole thing, and they figure, I'll rather stick with the, evil I know than going to something I don't know. But again, those people will show up to the town hall meetings if you encourage them and do it in a way that's engaging, where they can at least hear what other people have to say and what other people are concerned about. And then you can start to develop that buy-in. So the benefit of having the attorney present is that when homeowners start to talk about specific areas that they find to be troubling, your attorney can reply to that and either explain, that particular section cannot be changed because it's a statutory requirement. And then homeowners can just accept that whether there is a change in the governing documents or not, the statute's going to supersede. So there's no control that the board or the homeowners have on that particular verbiage. But if there's a sticking point, for example, we talk about, noise transmission or hard surface flooring, and the board approaches it in one way, but homeowners really feel strongly in a different way, that's a good opportunity for the board to open dialogue and really hear its members. And frankly, before ballots go out, if you think that there's one sticking point or maybe two that can be changed, and let people feel like they've been heard, you can send a subsequent notice after the town hall meeting to summarize what took place and to let all members know, we heard homeowners, we heard your issues. These were the 3 points. One of them is a legal issue, so we can't change that. But the other two, we recognize that a bulk of homeowners feel really strongly about these. So we agree that we're going to change it. And then we're going to send this out with the ballot. That's how you PR the matter, the subject. You don't want to keep dragging this out and wasting association funds on an expensive project without really going through and taking these extra steps to make sure that homeowners feel comfortable and you can assure success to the extent possible. And then Matt has a really fun tool for engagement on the next slide.
I had muted myself, but now I'm unmuted, so I can tell you about this fantastic tool that I saw a few years ago when I was driving into a large gated community, and I fell in love with it. So now I tell everyone about it, which is this handy dandy thermometer, which people use for things like fundraising, but you can use for the purposes of getting out the vote, letting people know that, hey, we're restating our governing documents, or we're voting on a special assessment, or we're voting for new board members. And it's just a nice, Netta talked about the importance of visual representations that really catch people's attention. This will catch people's attention every time they come home and are faced with the guilt about not voting yet. So it's a really great tool, and we found it to be very, very helpful for getting engagement in elections. So on Amazon, you can get one. So.
Absolutely. So on the next slide, we'll talk about, just how to encourage people to get to your town hall meetings. So as with the newsletters, any notice that you send out, think about how you can make it a little bit more visually appealing, whether it's emailing, whether it's mailing something, it's inclusion in the newsletter, make it, bright and inviting and engaging. Honestly, the best way to get people to come to those meetings is offering food and beverages. People tend to socialize over food and beverages. It's a big part of social norms and, cultural exposure is communicating with people over food. That's what we tend to do if we want to get together with a business affiliate or a friend. It's typically, okay, let's meet for coffee or drinks or lunch or dinner, and we can eat and chat. So it makes it very inviting and friendly and warm. And that's what you want. You don't want it to come across as though it's going to be a battle or it's going to be, a heated environment. You want it to be respectful and an environment that encourages people to voice their various opinions. We all have different ones, and a space where we can, have discussions about the various opinions. Communicate the agenda beforehand. And I just noticed somebody asked the difference between a town hall and open meeting. So an open meeting is usually set for the business that the board is required to conduct on a, whatever frequency established by your bylaws. And at town hall meetings, you're not actually conducting any business. This is simply informational. This is a specific topic. You want to convey, let's say we need a special assessment because we have to replace all of our roofs and we have 20% funding in our reserves, but it's going to deplete all of our reserves and we don't want to do that. But we have our roofer here and we have bank loan options. So we have a banker here and, we have our reserve study specialist here, and we just want to gather all these folks here and share this information with you. No decisions are being made. We want you to understand why we're thinking about this. We'll share statistics with you on the number of roof leaks and what the reserve study calls for. And we'll have our experts here who can also answer questions and explain the necessity behind it. So it's really just, again, explaining and bringing homeowners into the fold so that they understand what you're trying to accomplish before any actual steps are taken. And that followed the point, which is invite your experts and allow for questions and answers. Let homeowners feel like they're part of that process, because that's when the buy-in starts to happen, and make people feel heard. Okay, so on the next, getting past town hall meetings, just talk about when to pull your homeowners. And in my experience doing what I do, I will tell you nothing sets people off in a negative way, quite like, again, finances, but even more so aesthetic changes. I remember working with this one association and they changed, it was a high-rise community, and they changed the artwork that had been in the hallways for 3 decades. And the board went ahead and just picked artwork that was more modern and didn't ask anybody, just did it. And I have never seen so many homeowners show up to this meeting. They actually got rid of the new artwork and went back to the old. But I would say anytime you are thinking about changing the way your community looks aesthetically, whether it's a different color of paint, it's remodeling your, entryway or a clubhouse or something, this is a good opportunity to, again, engage your homeowners, maybe put up 2 or 3 paint swatch options in whatever room you intend on updating, and ask homeowners to participate in a poll and vote for what they prefer. You're still going to have homeowners who didn't vote for the option that you end up going with, who are going to be upset, but at least you can fall back and say, we polled our homeowners, we understand. Maybe it wasn't my first choice either, but we went with the majority, and this is why we made the decision. Okay. And we talked about regular and special assessments next. So on regular and special assessments, again, we want to communicate this early and often and as many ways as possible. So again, if we're just sending out a ballot asking people to vote on a special assessment without homeowners understanding or knowing or receiving any communication beforehand as to why, you can bet that that special assessment is going to be voted down. You need to have, you know, if you have good meeting attendance, which most of us don't, if you send out minutes of your meetings to homeowners and homeowners tend to read those and you're having some discussions around it or some topics around it, that's a great way. But again, the newsletter and letting people know this is our financial situation or financial status, and these are the projects that we're thinking about, or, you know, regular assessment increases, really just talking about, you know, insurance has gone up for everybody in California. In fact, so many associations are getting non-renewal notices and so many carriers are exiting California. We're lucky that we're not one of those people that's getting dropped, but we do have, you know, premium increases and we have to deal with that and start budgeting for that. So, you know, it's rolled into this current budget, but we know, talking to our insurance agent, that that's not going to be, you know, the current premium is not going to be our reality in the future. So we just want to let you know that that's what we're dealing with. So, you know, you can also explain to homeowners in newsletters why decisions are being made, and also just know your authority. So we know with regular assessments and special assessments, board members can increase the dues by up to 20% annually without a vote of the membership, but you just have to do that in an open session meeting that's properly noticed, as well as the 5% special assessment. And then anything over the 20% dues increase or that 5% special assessment requires a vote of the membership. And again, in both scenarios, it's important to communicate the why behind it. All right, Matt, I know you want to talk.
Yeah, so now let's talk about when you have to go to the membership to get buy-in and get them to vote on a special assessment. The first thing that you want to make sure that you're communicating to your members is, why is this project that we're endeavoring to do necessary? This is a conversation a lot of people have had to have with their members around SB 326, the balcony bill, because members felt kind of blindsided. So explaining the why behind it, right? Why we need more money than we currently have. There's going to be follow-up questions, I can guarantee you that. So you want to make sure that you are thinking, if I were a homeowner on the receiving end of this, not knowing what I know as an in-the-know board member, what would I need to know to feel comfortable and confident giving a yes vote to giving more money to my HOA? You also want to discuss alternatives that the board has explored. The second you come asking for money, everyone is an expert on better ways that things can be done, right? So you want to make sure that you, as a board, have done your due diligence in turning over all of the alternative options that are available, right? Both in terms of getting the funds, which are few. You could get a bank loan, and that's about it. You know, but are there any alternatives that can be explored, right? So for instance, for balcony replacements, if you're doing replacements of balconies, if you have wood balconies, have you considered replacing them with something like a composite material that doesn't degrade as quickly? Have you given consideration to, I mean, this is a long shot, right? But I mean, there's some member who's going to bring up, have you considered getting rid of the balconies altogether? It's like, no, we're not doing it. But you want to talk about all the alternatives that the board discussed and how they came to these decisions. Then, as Netta mentioned, you want to have town halls to answer questions that members are invariably going to have, and you want everyone in attendance to hear those answers. Even then, it's going to be an individual effort to get buy-in. So this means that, you know, it may be the case that you have to knock on the doors of some of your neighbors, or you have to you know, in some way engage them in a more personal format, call them, if you know people around the community. You want to send out reminders during balloting, reminding people, again, why this is important and that they should vote. You know, the other important aspect of this is you cannot tell members how to vote, right? You can't say you should vote yes on this, but you can say, in order to meet quorum, we need X number of members to return ballots. And you can say you have to, you have to entice the members to return their ballots. So the other important thing to notice for both board members and homeowners is that the quorum requirements for special assessments are different than other aspects of voting in community associations. This is set by statute. So all you need is more than 50% of the owners who have cast ballots, and a majority of those votes are what decides whether or not a special assessment can be imposed. So theoretically, even if an owner does not return their ballot, they could have a smaller group of homeowners, but a majority who have returned, or more than 50% who have returned a ballot, and just a simple majority of those that have returned the ballots deciding this. So if they want to leave it in fate's hands, great. But they would be in, it would be in their best interest to vote. So let's talk about emergency special assessments, which have had a resurgence in the last few years. So I went to a recent law seminar where there were some insurance professionals talking. And of course, board members are saying, we've seen 200, 300, I'm not kidding you, in some cases, 1,000% increases in our fire and liability insurance. Can we do an emergency special assessment? And they had an attorney on the panel, and he said, look, you get one bite at the apple. You get one time to be surprised by new information. That's what's important to recognize, is that emergency special assessments, although they can be unilaterally imposed by the board of directors, are not without a set of laws surrounding their use, right? So you want to start the conversation with your attorney. Civil Code Section 5610 is what outlines this. An extraordinary expense required by a court order, an extraordinary expense from something that poses a threat to personal safety that is discovered, and an extraordinary expense that could not have been reasonably foreseen. It doesn't have to be all of these, it can be just one of these. And your attorney can make that argument, but you want them to be the ones to make the argument, not you. You're not attorneys, we're not attorneys, attorneys are attorneys. Let them do their thing. A board resolution is required for an emergency special assessment. This will outline what we talked about previously, the necessity or the necessary authority. It's going to say, whereas the CC&R state blah, 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 whereas civil code says this and that, whereas we've done all this research and experts have concluded that it's an emergency scenario. And it's also going to include the rationale behind it. You want to communicate clearly the member's obligation for timely payments. This is not a special assessment that's going to drag on for 6, 12, 14 months. This is likely something that's going to be due and payable in 30 to 60 days. So really crucial that you communicate that with your members. So let's move on to some other day-to-day correspondence. We've included a sample of, a few years ago, we stopped calling violation letters because it sounded very harsh, and come to find out, it's not even necessary language. So we've switched to calling them friendly reminders. And we talk about how, you may be unaware that you have, that you're not in compliance with the governing documents. A lot of people are. We're here to let you know what the governing documents say. So this talks about how it's not necessarily what you're saying, but it's how you say it. So in the next slide, we're going to talk about violations and hearings. So the first topic that we have touched on is tone. So this is very important both in written correspondence as well as when you are conducting, verbal conversations with people. You want to be sure that you're staying professional, that you're keeping emotions calm and out of it to the extent possible. You want to ensure that you have adequate backup or evidence. So this can include reports from your security company, photo evidence, any security cameras that you might have, information. You want to have the why. So you want to let people know why these are important rules that they must follow. And you also want to set the stage in hearings. So it's very important that when they come in, they get the understanding that these are board members, but they are homeowners just like them, and that a decision has not been reached, and that they're going to be given an opportunity to state their case before the board. So let's talk about Netta. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, we keep doing that. And this is going to be very short and sweet. Communicate your success. We don't do that enough. We don't tell people, this is what we've accomplished, this is what we've achieved. Sometimes that is done at an annual meeting, but people don't often show up at annual meetings anymore because we have the ballots. So use your newsletters and various things to make sure that homeowners know these are the things that we have accomplished, so that when it does come time to share the bad news or get them to buy into some of the more difficult decisions that impact their finances, they are more inclined to support you because you have been so effective all along. So thank you so much for allowing us, Matt and I, to present and share this information. We'd love to answer questions at this point, and I think we have a couple of questions that were upvoted, and so I will, Dave, do you read them or do you want us to read them?
You can go ahead and read it if you like, or I can read them. It doesn't really matter, but where are we on the top of the page? Why don't you go ahead and take the first one?
Sure. So are there any creative ways of communicating when people are not reading their mail, are on auto pay, when communication is now email, USPS, posting, and newsletters, and none of these are working? Or a better question for Matt, what method would reach you?
Well, I mean, you can't reach me. That's just that. But I'm a big email person. I'm a big text message person. I like push notifications. I like things popping up at me. So the other thing that I will say is I keep an eye out for keywords, right? So in the subject line of these emails, if you have something that you really want your members to pay close attention to, you have to tell them before they lose interest, right? So right at the top of the subject line, it should say something like important, do not ignore, your money, something that really grabs their attention. It sounds a little out of an advertiser's handbook, but in essence, what you're doing is making sure that you're capturing the audience that you want to get out the information that you need to distribute. So yeah, I think, putting a big stamp on things that you mail out. I mean, there's a bunch of different ways you can do this, but you have to kind of hit people over the head.
Yeah, I mean, just think about how media captures our attention. They have these, these graphics that can be alarming sometimes. We don't want to scare people, or text that's short and sweet, but very impactful. This is where we talk about just really being proactive and kind of being strategic about it. But texts and emails in these situations, the people that are not reading their mail, or you just have to kind of think about the demographic, and you have to cater to each. Those are the text, short little bursts of information, hold their attention. We've done things like videos too, where we've recorded a video. It's a 30-second video, and then we send that out in all of the different ways. We have QR codes on the newsletters where it's like, watch this quick video to get some really important information that's going to affect all of you. And then all of a sudden you have people who are really engaged with that and interested, and just for the experience want to participate. We've had those posted in the common areas too, the QR codes, where people will just kind of walk by and say, huh, what's that all about? So it's just finding unique and creative ways to really engage and spark their curiosity and reach them in these short and subtle ways.
Okay. So if you wouldn't mind, those of you that want to vote on the question, simply go into your question and answer segment or section of Zoom and hit the thumbs up arrow, and then we'll be taking those in order. We are sorting by the number of thumbs up, not chronologically. Okay, so Jean asks, how and when should meeting minutes be communicated?
So yeah, the interesting thing about meeting minute distribution is that Civil Code at least puts the onus on the homeowners to be the ones seeking it out, right? From a legal standpoint. I'm not an attorney, I don't give legal advice, but yeah. But we want to be mindful of minutes as a communication tool, right? Like the members, we want to invite them into the conversations that have been had. We want to invite them mostly into the decisions that have been reached. So what we find most effective is once those meeting minutes are drafted, and it can either be when they're in the draft format or once they've been approved, that they get proactively distributed to the members, whether it's through an online portal where they can go and review them, whether it's through an email blast that goes out, or even making just a again bulleted list of kind of decisions that were made and a cute little update after the board meeting for people to comb through and just say what decisions got made, what are we doing, guys? That can be a really effective way as well. So yeah.
And I'll take it a step further back to the QR code, which is, bullet, here were the decisions made at the last board meeting, bullets. If you want a copy of the full meeting minutes, here's a QR code, and that can take them to your software platform or a website or something. And that again engages homeowners in signing up for your platform and starting to use it and get more comfortable with it. And we want to start filtering people to the software systems anyway for maintenance requests and other things like that. So it's a good engagement tool to say, check this out with the neat QR code.
So this is a really interesting question, and it's one that I get regularly, and I would love it if you guys could communicate this. It has to do with active listening and also responsiveness of the management firm and of the board. It says here, our management company is slow to write and send email communications. How should the board send out emails to homeowners? How do we maintain or access an email distribution list to our management that our management has? So, what's the most effective way? I think the bottom line is in communicating quickly to the homeowner.
Right. Well, I would start by having a proactive meeting with your managing agent and really identifying what the expectations are of the board and what, they think would be appropriate expectations. If the board feels like they need to be able to lean on management to communicate things that are urgent within a specific time period, I think it's really important. We talked about communicating fundamentally. It's really important for you to have that conversation. And, if you find that it simply just isn't in the model, the management model, then yeah, you might want to be looking at alternative options. So members have a right, any homeowner has a right to request a membership list, but board members have certainly the right, and even under the bylaws, the obligation to maintain the membership list. That tends to be one of the items that's delegated to your managing agent. But you can request that distribution list. You have to be cautious because you cannot use homeowner emails for things like campaigning, because once you do, then it opens it up to other homeowners who may want to campaign. But if you limit it specifically to the types of things that we discussed today, it would completely be appropriate. And maybe you create, let's say, a communications committee and designate members of the board and maybe perhaps homeowners who are, great writers and available to be able to create the information to disseminate. And then as far as how to send out emails to homeowners, if you have access to the software system that is used, that's one way. If you don't have access, there are other platforms. There's Google Groups that can be created. There's, all sorts of email distribution groups that you can create independently. Ideally, you would work with your management company and set those expectations and make sure that they're agreeable to those expectations. So I would start there because, they should have the platforms and the tools to be able to do this a lot quicker than, the volunteer board member can, but it's great that you want to do it and participate. And sometimes even if you're willing to do a step, which is I'll draft it, you just blast it, that could be very helpful too.
So the question, I guess, begs the question, do you or should the board communicate to the community the duration of time that will transpire from asking the question to when they can expect a response? And should the board see those communications and make sure that they're appropriate communications or not?
I think every management company is different. I know for us contractually, we specify that we get back to people for non-emergency matters within 1 business day, and then we're automatically sending out email blasts per our contract for any urgent matters that affect the community, at least half of the community or more. So that is an expectation that we set, but I think I've seen it just vary from company to company. And if it's not included in the agreement, which oftentimes it's not, I think the conversation and just hearing them, do they have the resources to be able to do this? Or even just saying, we want you to be proactive. If there's an emergency on the property, we just want you to think and know, send an email blast. You don't have to wait for the board to green light it. We want you to communicate with the homeowners. And sometimes there's just like a fear, or maybe somebody being timid or not wanting to, overstep, and just simply communicating might be the key to the issue.
Okay, so that sounds good. We are going to be doing expectations of your management firm and how to, sort of an
awesome.
appraisal in a couple weeks, actually about 4 or 5 weeks, we're going to be doing that. So it should be good. And it's a good question. So let's go to anonymous attendee. How do we manage how to contact renters? Renters is a big issue, very big concern. Should they be talking to them? We have 50% renters, and owners do not provide information regularly. It's a heavy challenge for volunteer boards to keep up renters' emails. It's a job. Is the strategy not to communicate with the renters and only to the homeowners? If the owner is the landlord, it is their job to communicate.
Right. I have heard different opinions on this from different community managers, right? And I've heard different opinions on this from different boards. I'll give you my personal take on it, which is, do we have an obligation to a renter as an HOA? No. Do we as a managing agent have an obligation to the renter? No, maybe, kind of a little, but not really. We have an obligation to the corporation, and the members of that corporation, which are the homeowners. So with that said, I will always communicate with renters, tenants, people who are living at the property, because they live there and they are my eyes and ears when we can't be there day in, day out if we're not on site. They provide valuable information. But I have knowledge, right, that I have the ability, the board has the ability, our other team members have the ability to set boundaries with these folks, because we're doing it as a service, right? We're doing it to make life easier for the landlord, so they're not having to constantly forward emails. We're trying to make life easier on the tenants, so they're not having to constantly bother their landlord and go through this Rube Goldberg machine of communication. Also, if there's an active leak, I want them to let me into the unit. And then, they can call the landlord and get the okay, but at the end of the day, we're not going to have a larger loss of property because I've taken a hard stance that we don't communicate with renters and the landlord's on vacation. You know what I mean?
And I'm going to offer a slightly different perspective just to open people up a little bit to this concept. Most board members say it's not our job. We are not the landlords. And I get that, because why should we? It's really almost a full-time job just to maintain what the landlords are responsible for communicating with the renters. However, when you have engaged homeowners, they become better members. When you have engaged renters, they become better members of the community as well. And part of what we always want to achieve in a homeowners association is building a sense of community within the community. And when we see the reason why on those lender questionnaires, they ask how many renters do you have, is that they know that renters are generally more apathetic than homeowners. They don't have a sense of ownership to the common areas, or they're not as invested in the units more often than not. I don't want to say 100% of the time, but when they start to feel like they're part of the community and they start to see the disturbances, not all of them, but maybe you can have some buy-in from 10 or 15 or 20% by engaging them and starting to communicate directly with them. And maybe even having not all, but maybe 1 or 2 events where you welcome the tenants to come to as well and meet their neighbors and engage with other renters and homeowners. You might get some buy-in and some sense of community and a little bit more ownership than you would have by otherwise just kind of shunning them and pushing them out. If somebody just tells you, we're not going to talk to you, it's certainly very uninviting, and it makes me feel like an outsider and an outcast, and it almost makes me feel resentful. So I'm not going to be very, you know, understanding if I'm made to feel like an outsider in my home.
Yeah, that's a good answer. One of the objectives and responsibilities of the board is to make sure that it's a safe and enjoyable community. And if you're building community and you have 50% renters,
Right.
somehow you better be talking to those folks. And and that's, I mean, it's just common sense to do that. Okay, our management company is slow to write and send email communications. How should the board send out emails to homeowners? How do we maintain or access an email distribution list our management has? So
We already answered that question.
yeah, kind of basic questions there.
We answered that one earlier.
Okay. And who should write newsletters? Should they be approved by the board before they go out? I asked that earlier. And then we have board members whose tone and content they want to write may not come across as the most professional, but they are the most eager to write and send the emails. Do you have a way to help with that? So 2 questions there. There was one other one. How do we make sure useful, relevant, and productive content is sent out?
Do you know when you have board members like that, we're going to talk about we talked about technology. ChatGPT is fabulous for things like that, where you can tell it, I want to say X, and then give it very specific details and say, I want it to come across in a friendly tone and build a sense of community. I mean, you can really tell it these details and then get the bones, the skeleton for it, and then modify it from there. So, I mean, the policy, if you have those really kind of gruff responses or authors, you could just say, I think we're going to try and start there, and then we'll, you know, reshape them from there. But that's helpful. It makes it less time consuming for us to write those articles. That might be a diplomatic way of going about it. Alternatively, we talked about a communications committee where if there is a volunteer who is a great writer and is kind of the editor, so to speak, we'll say, well, I'm just going to make sure that we edit things so that we maintain a similar tone across the board, and that, you know, I'm looking for grammar and spelling, and we want to make sure that we put something professional out. That's another option. But oftentimes it's either management or it's board members or a volunteer group of homeowners who write the newsletter. You just have to determine who it is that does that. And as we talked about earlier, there are the tools and, you know, companies that can be hired for a very nominal fee to beautify it, plug it all in, sometimes even write the articles too, if you give them generals. Matt, did you have more to add to that?
I mean, I will just say I love ChatGPT, not necessarily as a tool of creation, but as a tool of tone modification. So you can feed it exactly what you want to say, right? You can have your, we'll call him Cranky Ted, write his version of what should go out to the members. You can just copy and paste that into something like ChatGPT and say, please reword this in a professional and inviting tone, and it will pop it right out. Read it, please read it. I saw some question down the line about AI, but you have to read it, so please do. But yeah, it's really good for that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for that. We did have an article in the December Echo Journal on ChatGPT. We actually had the whole article, or at least most of the article, was written by ChatGPT, and kind of interesting. You know, there's a lot of opportunity there, so it's pretty cool. So we have room for about 2 more questions. I'm going to just take the 2 most upvotes here. Wolfram Schneider asks, what communication should be for homeowners only, and what should be communicated also to the renters?
Well, I think there's a long list that can come out from this, but I think anything that's financially related should certainly be homeowners only.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely true. I don't see much of an issue with much other correspondence going out to them. You know, there is a big question always about violations, right? Should that be going to the homeowner? Should that be going to the person who's committing the violation? You know, I know you heard me say previously that I'm fully in favor of engaging renters. That is one instance in which I will say we need to talk directly to the homeowner, just because I have no intention of getting into a spitting match with the with the tenant when frankly they have no obligation to us, they have an obligation to their landlord through their lease agreement, and we have a contract with the homeowner through our CCNRs. So
And just to add on to that, board meetings are for just those that are homeowners in the community and not for the renters. But would you suggest that renters be invited to board meetings or not?
the board has that latitude. They can invite, renters into board meetings. And I think I would sooner invite them probably to something like a town hall meeting, specifically if there were something that were going to affect habitability. For board meetings, if I were a board member, I'd probably exclude tenants. I don't think there's any reason for them to be there. But there are some exceptions, right, that boards will make as a business judgment.
Yeah.
Okay.
And on the flip side, I'd say I have no problem inviting them unless they're disruptive, because they would hear the day-to-day decisions. A sprinkler is broken, we're repairing it. This rule seems to be, just an announcement that's made or something. So there's 15 different opinions on it. And I think you just need to think about what is best for your community in particular, and whether, inviting them to those open meetings would be more engaging and a way to transmit information quicker that you think would be beneficial to them or not. So.
Yeah, and with board meetings, they're not always open even to the homeowners to speak. There's only an open period for conversation, and I think it's community specific, right? On how strict you want to be on that. So, okay. So the final question here today is, and this is a tough one, may go a long while, but how do you suggest tackling animosity, detractors, agitators in town hall meetings who try to steer the conversation every time into this board doesn't know what the heck it's doing? And I added the heck, by the way. This HOA is incompetent, etc. in the town hall meetings.
I mean, it is crucial, right? Especially if you know that you have cantankerous members or members who wish to shed light on how awfully the board is doing or the community is being run. If you know you have those folks, then you have to come prepared, right? You have to come prepared either to, depending on the level of severity, to either shut the meeting down, which that's kind of a last resort, or we just have to be prepared to, in a very polite and professional way, refute and move past what they continue to bring up, because they're not going to bring it up one time and then you shut it down and they'll be quiet. We have to get to a certain point where we acknowledge that if there's going to be a vote, you can vote. I don't know. It's tough, but go ahead, Nina.
Yeah, I mean, I will say with people like that, that's when you really have to rely on your structure and your meeting code of conduct. Because if they're in breach of the code of conduct, you can ask for their removal, you can send them a violation letter or proceed to fine them. And we want to hear from everybody. And I think that's what we want to say when we start the meeting. We want everybody's opinion. We want to keep it professional, respectful, and we want to make sure that these meeting guidelines are followed. And if they're not, then we're going to ask anybody who is in violation of these meeting, codes of conduct to please leave. Now, the other thing is that when you are addressing that homeowner, you aren't necessarily addressing that homeowner to change their mind, because you're not. But this is PR for the rest of the membership. You're going to have people who are showing up who have never seen you before or maybe don't know you very well. Usually that type of board member or that type of homeowner is the one who shows up at every meeting and is an agitator at every single function. So you have had it up to here, whereas everybody else, they're coming for the first time and then they're thinking, gosh, they're so argumentative. So you have to think about, how am I showing up and representing myself when it comes to the 99% of the other people in the room, not to that one person, because that one person is not going to budge. They are going to be who they are. We'll sit, we'll listen respectfully, and we're going to maintain our composure because that's what we're going to represent. And then we'll say, we really appreciate your feedback. Thank you very much. We'll hear from the next person now. And that's it.
So,
And
so
a really,
go ahead, Matt.
well, I was just going to say a really important aspect of town hall meetings, and I think especially if you know you have something on the table that's going to be tough, is to make sure that you're leaning on your experts, right? Lean on your management team who has experienced these kind of environments before, lean on your legal counsel that's there, lean on your construction experts who are there, your banking experts who are there. You know, you want to line up your teammates to be able to, you know, work with you.
But a town hall doesn't need to be called by the board of directors. It can be called by anyone in the community, correct? And then managed by anyone in the community.
So that's a membership meeting, which is a slightly different flavor. You know, yeah, that's probably best saved for a different discussion.
Okay.
But yeah, I think for town halls, those are generally called by the board of directors in pursuit of, you know, distributing information.
Right. If homeowners want to call a meeting separately, I think it's important for board members to say this is not endorsed by the association. This information is not being provided by the association. This is kind of a unique group of homeowners who've decided to engage. And, you know, if it's a town hall meeting, then it by the association, it's going to be more, yeah, you're going to have the board participate in the process of it, or members.
Do you need to invite everybody to the meeting? I mean, maybe if it's a membership meeting, can you just invite, you know, the residents that aren't the complainers, or how do you manage that?
No, I would make sure that you include everybody. You can't exclude anybody because then you have a whole host of other issues and, you know.
I mean, if you want to get the rubber stamp from your attorney, like that's, you know, yeah.
Yeah, because I had that question just the other day, and it was, you know, we're going to have a meeting, we're going to have everybody come over to my house, but we don't want these guys coming. And, you know, can they do that? And I would say probably they can, but it's just a private party at that part, right?
I mean, I don't know. I think it would definitely depend on specifics, and I would definitely run it by legal. I mean, in the event of something like a restraining order or something like that, perhaps, but I don't know. I don't know. And, you know,
okay.
If you're,
one attorney's making these calls.
Official business, I would say, you know, you don't want there to be discrimination lawsuits and all kinds of other things because you're excluding somebody, you know, that just doesn't look good. They can come up with any reason why you're discriminating against them. And the fact that you've excluded them out of 100 other homeowners does not help the case. But to Matt's point, you know, look at it from talk to legal counsel if they violated the meeting at code of conduct multiple times and that, you know, your attorney has kind of rubber stamped the fact that you can exclude them from future meetings or whatever, then fine. But yeah, be careful with that.
We got it. So you know, I'm going to wrap it up right now, and we're going to get into the closure here. But a couple things that I've learned is that communication is certainly critical for any association's well-being, and keeping people advised is a common thing that I'm picking up. Keep people advised. Don't try to bias the decisions one way or another, or leave people out. Transparency is something we always talk about a lot, especially in politics. It goes it's equally important for our own communities and our own HOAs. So try to be transparent. Adjust. Another theme I heard is adjust the communication styles and techniques and channels, if you will, to the community members. Not all communities are savvy enough to be using Google Groups or some of the techniques. So be mindful of that, especially if you're looking at an Active 55 community. There are different ways to communicate, and those should be adjusted properly. And be sensitive to what you say in the communication. So the words hurt, and so be careful about that, and make sure that you spend a special extra effort and maybe get somebody else to read what you've written. I know that's something I try to do, and it's always been better. So I want to say thank you, and I'll get this all moved over here. But I want to say thank you to both of you, Anita and Matt. What a wonderful job. Appreciate the conversation. And I really appreciate everybody else coming today. We had a good group. I think I saw 174 people actually came out of the 316. Most people will be getting, well, anyone who registered will get a copy of presentation, and they will get more information, the slides, etc. So we're really happy about that. Now, don't forget, we're going to be doing a draw here in just a couple minutes, and so hang in there for that. I'm going to get to my thank yous here in just 2 seconds, please. Okay. So I want to say thank you to all the members and our supporting ECHO members who supported us in their sponsorship. For those of you who are not members of ECHO, please consider becoming a member and supporting HOA board education throughout the country. To join, simply go to www.echo-ca.org and click on the membership tab. We also have a feature, and it's not mentioned here in the script, but we have a feature called ECHO Insight. It's an electronic newsletter, and it comes out 8 times a year. We'd love to have anyone sign up for that. It doesn't cost anything, and you'll be included in all of our events. So you'll get notification of all of our events. So for ECHO members, I want to say thank you for supporting us, and especially to all the management firms. It usually only takes a couple of people that you speak to get them to come and become part of ECHO. So if you wouldn't mind going out and reaching out to your friends, colleagues, your vendors, your management firm, and just let them know that ECHO is there for homeowners and to help spread the word about better quality management in communities and improving community living. If you would like to become more involved with ECHO, we have a few opportunities for you. Please refer to the slide. If you see anything that looks interesting, please send me an email at dzapponi@echo-ca.org. Currently, I'm looking for someone to help us with the website just to get information up on the site. So if you have a son or daughter or someone who's staying at home would like to make a little extra money, it's not a long, it's not a lot of hours, but it would help us a lot if you have someone who knows how to work in WordPress and can help us put stuff up. Now for other announcement. This year, ECHO is launching a new educational program focused on HOA board preparedness. The core curriculum is 10 courses designed for high quality training and is available for HOA board members, interested homeowners, and professionals. Your participation in this program will earn you the certificate of successful completion of the curriculum. The courses will initially be offered live via a webinar, and the eight of the 10 courses will be recorded. If you miss one of the live programs, you can pick it up on demand and go through the course yourself and not have to be present at the course. Each of the courses will have a test, if you will, an exam, and it's a 70% or better test. It's pretty easy. You just have to sit through the exam. Most people pass. If you or someone you want to enroll in the certificate program, please send them to Connor and he'll set you up. His email address is on the screen. So thank you so much for that. Our 2024 resource panels are just around the corner. Actually, in fact, I'm going to Northern California next week, and we will be starting the year off at the Wine Country Resource Panel on February 20th. From 11:30 to 1:30 p.m. at the new Vintage Community Center in Santa Rosa. We will be discussing how to fireproof an HOA community. These resource panels try to focus in on local issues. In Novato, the North Bay Resource Panel will meet Tuesday, February 20th, and and the San Francisco Resource Panel will meet in the city in San Francisco for a wine tasting conversation about HOAs, Wednesday, February 21st from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. A special note, ECHO will hold its 3rd annual Ask the Expert About Insurance webinar on Wednesday, May 22nd. We know how much this is a pain for many of you and how difficult it is. I think, Matt, you mentioned it earlier. And so we're doing a special program. This is actually our 3rd annual one. And it'll help explain the situation and perhaps give you some answers. Please mark this on your calendars, May 22nd from 1 to 3 p.m. It is a webinar. ECHO is planning 3 larger events this year. We are planning these now, and you'll have more information about them a little later. We'll have our first in San Jose. It's coming up at the Mayfair Community Center. And that is, I don't remember the date, but it's coming up in May. We have one in October in San Jose. So if you're around that area, we'll have another there. And then we have our final legislative update, which is going to be at Rossmore. And we will talk about politics and what the new laws are that are coming down the pipe. Once again, thank you to our sponsors for making this community conversation possible. And thank you to Netta and Matt for developing and presenting the material today. And of course, thanks to all of you for attending today and making this a successful event. ECHO appreciates your investment in education to foster a better quality of life in HOA communities.